folks. Welcome to the Citizen Central. Sorry for everybody who's live here. Kind of just lost track of where the button was there. Welcome, everybody. We've got a special show today. One that actually is kind of surprising me. It's supposed to be a show about the next update, 3.23 Star Citizen, as it's going into the first quarter. But we just got a huge drop of information this morning regarding 3.23 that is making it look like a much more exciting talk. So, got some friends in here today. All three are making the good content over here on Star Citizen of their own types. And I want to give you guys a chance to introduce yourselves because you've got good things to say about the stuff we've got coming up today. And it's going to be a good talk. So we'll start with you, Solus. Let the folks know who are you? Where are you coming from?
Hey, everybody. Solus here. I am the host of the Beyond the Verse Star Citizen podcast. I had yours truly, Space Tomato, on a show episode a couple weeks ago. So might be a little familiar, but thanks for having me on, Space.
Yeah, of course, man. Thanks for coming on. Croncy, how about yourself?
I'm Croncy. Tomato said good Star Citizen content. I wouldn't go that far. I make content about Star Citizen, and I also do a weekly podcast with Salty Mike called Answer the Call.
It's good stuff. How's that been going?
Really good. We've changed some things up, and it's been very, very cool joining Mike as a permanent co-host. Yeah, it's fun.
It's good fun, man.
Something different.
The salty Croncy. Something I don't know.
Exactly.
We got the podcast crew here.
Sweetie Croncy.
Nice.
And Ollie, my man. How about yourself?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me back. I love this show.
Always glad to have you on, dude. You are the most infectious positive force I know in Star Citizen, so I'm always happy to have you on to talk about some of the stuff we're seeing. How have you been lately? How's your content been going?
Yeah, good. January, I took a bit of a break, CIG take a break. So I think, January, just chill out a little bit.
Yeah.
Hitting hard in October, November, December, and then it's like, I need a break. So yeah, starting swinging now. Just wow, like you say, the show that we had today, Star Citizen Live, was apparently pretty huge.
Yeah.
So yeah, coming out swinging. Hopefully.
Yeah. So CIG's back from their break, and also our fourth guest today is Tomatillo over here. Kind of short on words. Yeah, not really gonna talk too much, but here for the emotional and mental support. So thank you. Thanks for joining us. It looks like chat is not working with us today. Oh, there it is. There we go. Chat's also here with us, so we got the whole crew. We're gonna talk about what Ollie just mentioned, Star Citizen. I had a whole set of questions. We were going to go about this a certain way, but with all this new information, I think we're just going to kind of dive into this. Instead of talking about what's been going on with your guys' game so far, we all kind of know January is pretty quiet. We're just going to jump straight into where things are headed now. First, let's start with the fact that communication is changing this year. Inside Star Citizen and Star Citizen Live are both doing things a little bit differently. How do you guys take that? Usually it's kind of a scale back, at least over the last several years. It's been like this show gets shortened or this show gets moved into this show, but this feels like they're doing more. How do you guys feel about that this year?
Well, I'll go. I think it's a real good indicate. For me, I don't want to be the conductor of the hype train, but I feel like it's a good indication of they expect to have more to say. I think if you thought, we're having a slow year, you wouldn't then immediately go, let's have a show every week until the patch comes out. So, pinch of salt and all, but seems positive. I don't know. It might be the episodes that just they don't have any information or they're not as interesting. But, looking on positive side of it, hopefully that means we're getting more content, more updates, and some good changes.
Yeah.
This is the first week of that change, right? And to be fair, I don't think this week felt different necessarily to many weeks that we had last year. However, it was a very full week. So if it sort of does continue that each week that we have an ISC that's just chock-a-block full of information, SEL that's chock-a-block full of information, then yeah, that's insane and super, super cool. So I do sort of hope that continues. maybe a little bit less information because my brain is still sort of trying to digest everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say if we get that much information every week, they may have a problem on their hands. That might be too much.
I think they might be making 12 games at that stage if that's how much we end up getting.
I feel like they're already doing that with Arena Commander. But yeah, I'll jump on the hype train real quick. I mean, if you take the last ISC, in December, that was all hype. It was all preparing the masses for 2024. This one was a continuation, but it was a shocker because, or actually, Star Citizen Life. It was a shocker because it's basically everything that they had promised from a quality of life perspective in 323. And so if you go through the cadence of what they're going to be talking about, you're asking about ISC and Star Citizen Live, there's a lot more to talk about. And if we are to hold them accountable to what they said in CitizenCon and in those hype videos, we're supposed to be getting 4.0. We're supposed to be getting all this technology. We're supposed to be getting, the sky in 2024. So there better be a lot more content for them to discuss.
Yeah. So I'm thinking we jump into this update. We talk about 323. Let's take each feature that we kind of know is at least planned for this update. Maybe talk it out a little bit, what we're thinking of it, and then look a little bit further ahead and let's talk about what we might be seeing even past that. So let's start with Inside Star Citizen yesterday, because we just got Star Citizen Live. There's a bunch of stuff, but we know that EVA and personal interaction are coming, and we've gotten to see them actually shown on the screen at ISC. What were your guys' takes on that? We'll start with you, Solus.
Yeah, EVA is huge. One of my favorite kind of lazy mission in Star Citizen is the investigation, where you're going to an orbital station and you have to swim around the orbital station. Those are damn near impossible, right? In the current EVA mechanic, clipping into walls and getting around barriers. It's been such a heartache where I just don't do them anymore. EVA is going to be a game changer for maneuvering around your spacecraft and actually taking advantage of pulling equipment off of your ships. I mean, it's going to be night and day. And then just quickly on the player, the personal interactive system, it's always a pain. We just did Siege of Orson a couple of days ago, picking up ammunition and picking up weapon systems. Again, almost damn near impossible while you're being shot at. So these are quality of life necessities in order for us to progress into a more formidable game.
Absolutely. Do you think that the interaction system changes they're making, I've seen some people say that it's casualizing the game, the way that it's kind of adding prompts in? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that sentiment. I'm curious. It's a very complicated in this current state. It's very complicated. There's a lot of options to do within each system. So how they streamline it, I don't know how that's going to play out. It's supposed to be better, but it still might be the same level of complexity, just in a different experience, right? A different user interface. So I'm interested to see it come to fruition, but I don't necessarily agree with that sentiment.
Certainly. Star Citizen is not armor. And it's really important to remember that a lot of the times. A lot of the time, simplifying something doesn't necessarily mean dumbing it down, doesn't necessarily mean... first off, the term casualizing it, that's not even a bad thing. Do you not want casual players to enjoy video games, right? Like, that's a good thing. But yeah, like it's something as simple as this. It is really just makes life easier. It does not make... Like, it makes your interactions with the game easier. Doesn't necessarily have anything to do with like realism or I don't know, like hardcore play or anything like that.
I'm super excited for it because the interaction, especially because one, at the moment, if you have an Xbox controller, you can't play this game just with an Xbox controller. But I'm hoping, and I don't know if this is true, but because it's look at it and punch F, you should be able to map that on an Xbox controller and play the whole game on a controller, which is kind of cool. So if it comes out on consoles next year, just like this was your clue. But for me personally, I think it's gonna, like, for me, I don't always recommend this game to everyone that I meet because there's a huge learning curve with a lot of the stuff. Oh, you need to have a drink. You need to go through your industry, then you press place, and there's like a lot of layers and complication to just simple task of like, I want to loot that guy's ammo. Okay, need to loot him, then I need to drag it over here, and then I need to do this. But if you can just look at the character and then just press loot or whatever, I think it just, like you guys have been saying, I think the casualization of Star Citizen, or making it like it seem a bit more casual, just easier, intuitive, I think is a great thing, especially for new players, like especially with the tutorial and stuff. It just makes it a lot more approachable. I think that's a
Hey,
good
do you know
thing.
how many key bindings this game has?
Oh my god!
The answer is
so
far
much.
too many.
I definitely
Yeah,
get
so-
I mean, a lot of the features that we're getting, which are, we're like losing our minds over a map, right? And most people who play games would be like, you didn't have a
It's a
map.
map.
Like
Yeah.
all these features we're getting are super bare minimum, but they feel like a necessity for a game. It doesn't feel like, I agree with you guys, it doesn't really feel like a casualization. It feels like just something a game needs for people who want to learn it. I think that they should allow us to turn it off. The holographic little indicator, I think that should be disableable. But I think, especially Ollie, going over what you said, I've been trying to do the controller gameplay over the last couple of weeks, and one of the things that I've struggled with the most was figuring out how to like interact. I've gotten all the strafe and EVA controls and reloads and everything, but when it comes to interacting, I struggled to find the key binding, and I realized if this system was already in the game, it would have told me what the key binding was by default.
Yeah. You can't.
I don't know.
It's a weird bug. It just doesn't work at the moment. So being able to map F, and it actually, you can't use elevators. I think it works for like doors. No, for like picking stuff up and stuff, but elevators specifically, you can't. Like if you map F to the controller, it doesn't work, which is really sad. So I think hopefully it will streamline it a little bit, and you can double tap to do the secondary. And I love the mapping stuff. It all just looks super user friendly.
Yeah.
Dare I say?
No. Star Citizen user friendly? Never.
What? They're trying to help us? So, the interaction system is, I always thought that was going to be like included in the new player experience, or at least partially. Like I always wanted the new player experience to include some sort of augmented reality overlay or something that could just show people what they could touch. There's so many things in this game that you look at and you're like, wow, that's really nicely detailed. I'm glad they've got stuff like that. And you realize you can pick it up. Then there's other stuff where you're like, wow, that's incredibly low detailed and you can't interact with it. Or backwards, the other way around. Something that high detailed, you can't interact with something that's low detailed. They want you to pick up and you don't know what is what. I think this kind of interaction system is really going to help people learn that stuff. But it doesn't come with the physical stuff, right? The physical button pushing, flips, switching stuff. You guys didn't see that?
Oh, like the puzzle interaction sort of things that we saw at Squadron.
Yeah.
Didn't we see like a guy in? Sorry, the guy punched the door button. Is that going to be part of this?
That's what I'm saying. I don't think we saw that in ISC.
No, everything that was in the ISC was essentially interactions that exist right now in the game, but just way better and working, essentially.
Yeah. So what do you think of that, the way that they're kind of splitting the interaction system into this initial version and I guess something down the line?
I'd be super weird if you have to do everything with the control, like with the, like it's like half of the stuff. You have to hit F and the rest of it, you have to do the hover screen thing. Is that what we're saying? That you'll still have to hold F, select the elevator?
No, I think they're giving us the actual interactions, but not the physical animations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I don't care about the animations right now.
Yeah, and I don't think they've said anything about it necessarily coming to Star Citizen. Just in the way that what would those interactions look like? It would be maybe a couple of animations that would be uniform, like pressing an elevator button, and that would be about it. Whereas the animations that are going to exist in Squadron are able to be a lot more tailored to specific things that you're doing throughout the campaign.
Right.
So I wouldn't even say that it's split. I would just say this is the system that we will be using from now on. And then maybe there's some extra animations that come later, but that's flair, if anything.
The good stuff, the polish. The functionality is what matters.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I watched back the Inside Star Citizen, and there was an animation when the guy customized the pistol and put the compensator on.
That
like
exists.
there was an animation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it already exists. Okay.
Yeah. It's just terrible.
Does it exist? Putting the silencers on the
The
pistol?
I've never noticed
customization of the guns, yeah. So if you hold F and then you go customize on your gun, you choose the different types or whatever. I don't remember exactly if there's like the animation of, you know, like you may be screwing on
Twisting
a compensator
enough.
or anything. But essentially it is the exact same system.
Yeah, I didn't remember like the physical interaction with it. It's cool though. I feel like we've been waiting a while for that, and the only thing I've seen do that consistently was like Gary's mod stuff back in the day. EVA changes also are pretty keen though. I think it's one of the more annoying things in the game when you're like floating down a hallway and your foot hits something and you go spinning off and you're like you cannot control yourself. Do you guys think they're going to start adding more like EVA specific content because of that?
I hope so. Yeah, I absolutely hope so. I mean, it's already like tapped into, like I said, the orbital station, and they already have, you know, the cargo missions where you're having to get out and move cargo boxes from ship to ship. Absolutely. I think they're going to touch more on that when you're able to fully maneuver. Right now, it's a nightmare. Something happens behind you, you can't spin around, right? So yes, I do think they'll lean heavily into that, especially with the cargo updates coming down the pipeline.
But with this EVA update, we're seeing that we're not getting push and pull.
We're not. Correct.
And
That's fine.
we're not getting EVA fuel, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think this is a really good first step, though. I think this is like the harder thing to get right. And once they square this away, I think that push pull downstream is going to be a lot easier to adopt once the foundation of this is perfected or close to it.
It's interesting that the player interaction system is kind of more functional and less animation based, and then the EVA update is kind of more animation based and less of the function. But they both seem like pretty solid updates.
I wouldn't say that. It's based on how they are describing how the EVA is working mechanically and how you will be interacting in EVA mechanically. I think it's very much, like I forgot the word you used. Look, I woke up like an hour ago. It is a lot more functional because there's the whole thing of the you maintain your momentum. The way that you actually move around is completely different now.
Okay, so you are maintaining
the way that you look
momentum.
around is completely different.
Cool.
So it's certainly functional. I also want to say that the I don't really care as much about the push pull not being in it because I assume, and we love assuming, that we'd still be able to use the tractor beam in 0G. So everything that I need to do in EVA now, I should theoretically be able to do with the new EVA.
It should be
It'd still be better, right?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be better. And there is some function to it. I didn't know we were maintaining the momentum, but I was thinking the looking around felt more animation, but it's animation with a functional improvement. I will give you that. The overall improvement of it, do you guys think is going to include momentum arresting for non-player objects then? Just so that we don't have like ships and cargo and stuff floating away forever?
I kind of hope it's like that actually happens because that's hilarious. Like,
it'd be cool, but it'd be such a nightmare.
Try to board a ship
I know,
at like
but we're in a
500
space game, right? It'd just be part of the drama of like, no, that I'm dehydrated and my bottle of water is plummeting towards like Daemon.
It's floating away from me at a meter an hour. I can't get to it.
Exactly. Do you guys think they should put like I mean, I was watching the animation. Do you think they should put like rockets on the bottom of the feet? Because like the way
like Iron Man.
Well, I just think that would look cool, right?
It does look cool, but that's essentially what's happening with the undersuit. It's just instead of those rockets being on your boots, they're like there's thrusters on different parts of the undersuit.
Yeah. How do you think it's going to work when people start to get undersuits and then go out in space and realize maybe they got an undersuit that doesn't have EVA thrusters on it? You think they're gonna like how much are they going to warn
just
people?
Going to drift off forever.
Like, hey, you probably should have a tractor beam.
They just charge so confidently off the side of their ship. Then, whoops.
Yeah, because that's one of those interesting things. It's another feature I think we'll be talking about later today. The visor system is also not going to have like crosshairs, right? Certain helmets won't have the dynamic crosshair. Certain suits won't have EVA. There will be some of these things that get sprinkled throughout these features that'll kind of catch a player off guard if they're not ready for it.
Yeah. But I also love it too, though, right? Like we always scream like reality or realism in Star Citizen, like, and we also heard about the economy updates in Star Citizen Live as well. So I think if you want that visor with the dynamic crosshair, pay extra for it. Not every helmet should have that functionality or capability.
Yeah.
I like it. I love it.
I like
At the
that too.
moment, it doesn't really matter. Like when you go to
Yeah.
buy armor, it's like, do you want light, medium, or heavy? And it's like, there's 6 variations of medium, but it doesn't matter which one other than how it looks. But if some of them have, or like visors have different features, or, one visor is really good at X and this one's better at Y, then people will wear armor, not because it just looks better, but actually functionally it's more useful, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all good stuff. But to sort of go back to your question, Keenan, it's more like yeah, it will be good in general, and there won't be many issues as long as when you do equip those items or when you purchase those items, it is extremely clear to the player what they do.
Yeah.
Because I would argue even right now when you do buy different types of armor, it's not particularly clear what the benefits and negatives are of each particular armor type, except for maybe temperature rating. That's kind of the only one that's obvious.
Does it even tell you when you're putting on a helmet that won't protect you in EVA?
It won't tell you when you're putting it on, but it will tell you when you're purchasing it, essentially.
Okay.
That, like, this is a, whatever.
Well, if they tell you something.
Thing.
Hey, you're going to die.
Yeah, exactly. It needs to be obvious, and people need to be told. Even even if you didn't purchase it and you are just putting it on for the first time, we've been getting really good at the small like player help boxes that have been coming out ever since they started the new player things. Don't remember what they're called at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Just having something like that pop up when you put on a helmet of like, this helmet is rated whatever, it will allow you to XYZ.
Yeah. Those are like those nice nifty UI things that I really want to see come into the game, like pop up on your HUD and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess this is a great segue into some of the other things coming in 3.23, because I'm pretty sure they mentioned in Star Citizen Live today that visor update's coming, right? Solus, I think you're the one who really got to watch it all the way through. I don't know, Croncy, if you've gotten to yet. I know I haven't.
I got a list.
Okay, yeah. So at least we got a list. That's good enough. But the visor system is something that they said is going to be coming. What were the kind of the details surrounding that they mentioned?
Yeah. So the mini map on the top left was something that was going to be present for some locations, not all. They made it a point that literally everything in the game would have to be mapped out before it gets fully integrated. Ooh. So have low expectations before.
Let us map it out. Come on.
I'm sure there's a mod out there that'll do it for them. But yeah, so they mentioned that. What else, Croncy, specifically about visor?
Well,
visor and lens,
with the visor and stuff, we actually saw a bunch of it during the ISC, which is like one of the things I got excited for, and then they talked about it during SCL. Mm-hmm. So we're looking at things like updated mission status on the top right of your visor, making it look a lot nicer. Ammo in the bottom right looks a lot nicer. Your bearings are at the top.
Yes.
In the center, your compass, yep. So a lot easier to navigate in FPS now.
100%.
The map, a bunch of other things, just pretty much the visor that they showed at CitizenCon looks like it is on its way in 3.23, and the UI is significantly better than what we've had for a while.
Yeah, it pushes it off to the sides and gets it out of the way.
Really looks like it clears up the space. In the episode, were they showing B-roll of this stuff, or were they just talking about it?
Yeah, during the ISC, specifically the interaction section, where they were talking about how interaction works. That was on a build of 3.23 that had the new visor.
Okay,
so
cool.
You just get all of it pretty much there.
That's huge. I mean,
yep. It's easier to look at too. That's the big thing. It is nicer on the eyes. Actually, it's not as jarring sometimes as the current UI can be.
Oh my god, and it is jarring. I feel like I'm always in a jar. One of the biggest things that I feel like I took away from CitizenCon was it just looks like an actual game. Like we've seen. I always go back to the Squadron 42 vertical slice because I remember watching that and being like, yeah, they're doing good work. Good job, CIG. Keep it up. This is good. And then like I go back and I watch that footage and compare it to like the HUD that we have now, and I'm like, see, now this looks like a game. That looked like they were just kind of throwing stuff in there to make the game work. This looks like they want to release something, and the HUD rework and like the ship kind of systems rework are the two biggest ones that feel like that.
You know why
I
it
think
feels like a game? Because it's all Squadron.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all the stuff they got to develop traditionally. I wonder. I feel like they're gonna have to have a lot of conversations about that. Like all this time, Star Citizen did this open development, but in reality, it just funded a closed development game, and then it's benefiting from it. And I do wonder if they had phrased it like that in the beginning, how successful that would have been.
It makes I don't want to take the show this direction, but it makes me wonder how close we are to Squadron 42, right? Like if the product,
let's go.
I saw the comment in chat in Squadron in Star Citizen Live, but no, I mean if the polished items are already coming to us, and we're not saying that 323 is next week, that's not what we're saying, but the very next patch has all of the polished items from Squadron 42 quality of life wise coming over. It does make me wonder, like, I don't know. Well, that's a good sign.
I mean, these are polished for Star Citizen, not for Squadron. If they're coming over now, it means they were polished for Squadron a while ago. Well, right. Okay, I won't say that. I'm not going to put that on the record. That means they were in a good place a while ago.
You're still sort of in like the right space though, right? Like all of the devs that did move from Squadron to here, it's now been a couple of months since they got onboarded, because we got sort of a confirmation that the onboarding was happening. I think it was around September, October. And a lot of those features are going to be the core features of Squadron, like the UI, like interaction, the things that were literally, this is how you play the game, were going to be the most polished in Squadron. So it makes sense that these would be the first ones that we'd get from Squadron, and that they would be hopefully in a decent state.
Yeah.
I think we need to remember that the reason why all this stuff looks super polished, not only developers, but I think it's because we all play Star Citizen and are constantly giving feedback. I think a lot of the good choices they're making now are down to people making like videos and saying, I don't like this, or even forum posts or whatever, and or Reddit, and saying like, this is dumb, I don't like this, and then it going on like a whiteboard somewhere, and then them chipping away at it. And I think this is just, they should marketing team should just name this patch quality of life, because I feel like it's for new players. I don't think it's anything that incredible, other than it's easier to use. But
what are you talking about, man? They're getting a map.
But
I feel like this patch overjoyed.
I feel like this patch is like for those who held the line and put up with that star map for however long, and now you're getting one that is like easy to use and like not as frustrating. Hopefully, none of us have tried it yet, so it could be worse. But
could be a white Christmas.
Assuming it's better, what a nice thing for everyone who's played the game and put up with the things that are a little bit, Star Citizen jank type of thing that you just put up with.
The good old times. We're gonna look back on the good old days. Can't wait.
I'm gonna miss the faceplant jank.
Oh, I'll still figure out a way to faceplant. We were just talking about it. We'll make it work. The star map's another part of the UI though, and really, I think for a lot of people, the star of the show. What did they have to say about the star map?
I mean, just that it's coming, right, Croncy? Like that it's planned for for this next release.
Quick shout out to community manager from CIG, Nick Howe, who just actually sent me a list of all of the things from SCL today. The star map, including search functionality, improved visual presentation of maps, and many other quality of life improvements. So
they've put in search?
Yeah.
Apparently.
Because I remember, was it Jared was like, you're going to put in search, aren't you? Like, you're going to put in search. And then the developer was like, I'll put in search, yeah.
Man.
Damn,
being able to just
do more now.
Trying
to game changer.
Trying to travel to a place on a planet is so much harder than it should be.
You can just type it in. Brios, let's go.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. So we're getting, and hold on, I'm seeing that might have gotten posted here too. So we're getting the star map. Did they explicitly say there's anything in the star map that wasn't going to be there? Because I know that they were kind of talking about how I think she mentioned a couple things at CitizenCon that she showed, but also kind of sounded like they'd be coming later. Did they, for instance, talk about like planetary surface maps? Because we didn't really see that during CitizenCon.
So if I recall, it was one of the quicker segments where they brought up what else is coming in 323, and they said the star map, and it was a fast transition, not like the mini map. The mini map is what they said that there would be blockers to getting it fully integrated, but
Okay.
star map sounded like it's a full package that we'll be seeing in 323.
So the minimap isn't coming in 323?
So the minimap is for
is.
certain locations.
Okay.
It's not going to be
Right.
every
certain ships.
location.
It doesn't sound like necessarily they might have it for every ship, but
Okay.
That's right.
A bunch, presumably.
That's interesting. It sounds like it might be one of those features, kind of like engineering or master modes or Maelstrom, that they have to go through all of the ships to get working.
Yeah, what it sounds like. Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of master modes, did they say that's coming to the live patch?
It's a hotly debated topic, but yes, it is. It's coming live.
It's already highly debated.
Wait,
there will be more.
Ships,
there will be more ships in Master.
There'll be
Mode,
more ships, not all
the
ships.
confirmed thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
More
Right.
ships.
So there's going to be. So let me get this straight. Live patch. Some ships will have master modes and some won't. Is that what you're saying?
My assumption is that they'll just put more ships with master modes in Arena Commander for now.
Okay. So it's not coming live.
Oh, interesting.
I don't think they clarified,
live.
but I don't see them releasing partial master modes to live. That'd be really weird and not great. So
that's why I was like,
weird.
How would that work? Okay, yeah, that makes a lot more sense. So they'll probably update all the ships until they're ready, all in Arena Commander, and then move it over.
There's somebody in CIG that's like, challenge accepted. Like, we're gonna don't do it to us. Don't do it.
Let's see. Another little addition
on master modes, just because it's sort of a connection thing, is that they mentioned the gimbaling thing. This is something that we did hear about in an SCL like end of last year, of that all ships, essentially all weapons, will be gimbaled. That's going to be a change that's coming with some exceptions, but for the most part, it is the rule that all weapons will be gimbaled. So that aspect of the game is going to change quite a bit.
What is this game? I don't recognize it anymore.
It's a fun one, Ollie. Finally,
just imagine
fun anyway. I don't know if I'll enjoy it anymore.
Just keep imagining, man.
This sucks. They keep adding cool things. Damn it!
It's easy to use. I don't understand.
So, precision mode is that kind of what you were getting at with that?
Yeah,
that's another thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So precision mode feels like our first step towards capital ship gameplay. I mean, I know it's supposed to work with all different type ships, but that really, we were always kind of told that we would be targeting components and attacking components, but then it's like, okay, well, when I fight, I'm like just trying to hit the ship. How would I ever aim for components? And then they bring in precision targeting mode. Feels like one small slice of the prep that they're doing now, getting us towards like the Polaris coming out and starting to work with more multi-crew gameplay and the ideas behind repairing that stuff. I wasn't even thinking about that really before CitizenCon though. Was that like in your headspace when you thought about combat, a more specific targeting mode?
I think CitizenCon was the first time that they mentioned it, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
Especially because everyone was like, haha, they're ripping off Starfield. But anyway, I think it was never on my radar. The idea of shooting specific parts of ships for sure was, but I thought we would be doing that just with our regular.
I mean, you can already do that.
Yeah, 100%. It's not great, but it is a thing that exists already. I think the addition of precision targeting mode is just good in general, because in so many games you have advantages and disadvantages to have doing ADS and not. So even in a PvP situation, it's good to have this extra element of, well, if you're really good at precision targeting and when you do it, you get the upper hand on your opponent and all that sort of stuff. So it's not even necessarily capital gameplay. It's just an added layer of complexity that's easy to understand for players. It just adds a little bit to the fun.
Yeah. I think
what you're saying,
reward.
sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I was going to say, I think for capital ships, I think when you're moving slowly, that sort of stuff is really going to come into its own. I like the precision aiming modes for smaller, faster ships. For me, need to see more of that to really understand why that's in the game. Because if you've got a small, nimble ship, that's going to be really confusing. Maybe I need to see more of it. But I think for big capital ships with big size 10 cannons on the front or whatever, I think that sort of stuff makes a lot more sense of like, okay, we're going to actually target the engines or the shield or whatever. I think that really makes sense. But like, also, are they going to gimbal the railgun on the bottom of the Idris?
No,
Like,
that's one of the exceptions. So it is a
Okay.
rule, but there are a few weapons that are exceptions to that rule.
it's just like a big turret, like.
Oh my god.
That would
Just
be crazy. I like that it makes it feel kind of indirectly like ships are more than just a sum of, or
Naval
rather
combat.
that they are some of their parts. Yeah, there's like multiple parts to a ship, and you're thinking about it as more than just a giant hunk of flying metal. I love the direction it's going in. Ooh,
Yeah.
Ooh.
I think for me it's like another level of risk versus reward. I think Ollie said it beautifully, but you can give up your maneuverability. Excuse me. You can give up your maneuverability when you're flying a massive capital ship. So yeah, let's give that up. I have a staff that's going to hold, armor and everything else. So I'm going to focus in on shooting, but not necessarily for a Santok Yai. Santok Yai probably doesn't need to use precision targeting. It's nimble, it's agile. So I like the risk versus reward. It's another layer of combat consideration.
Yeah. It also potentially adds a lot to just turret gameplay in general, because I don't imagine there'll be a lot of times where you wouldn't, if it is available to turrets, which I assume it would be. There's no reason why you wouldn't be in that most of the time, allowing you for better control, and it powers up multi-crew gameplay a lot more, which is something that Star Citizen keeps on struggling a lot with, of making multi-crew worth it. So it's another aspect that they can sort of push on.
And it's also something that's going to be balanced with things like master modes, engineering, and other things. Like, you can't look at just the addition of master modes and say that's going to change combat in some certain way, because now we've got things like precision targeting. We're going to have like these different atmospheric flight models. It's a lot of stuff that's about to change the way people
so much
approach
changing
ships.
to this game.
Yeah.
Like, you keep saying things, I'm just like, oh yeah, they're going to change flight model. Oh yeah, they're going to be changing that.
Yeah,
How
I
about
don't
unrecognizable.
Yeah.
I don't
We
think
have
the
so
game
much
has
more.
changed this much since like during
2014.
2021. True. But yeah, during 2021, we got medical, we got inventory, we got the prison system, we got like a ton of things that just changed how the game works completely.
Yeah.
And this is feeling like, well, what if we did that in one patch?
Yeah, and even then it feels like more. It's insane. We're getting systems replaced that have been in this game for more than half a decade.
Do you think
Like
they're
multiple
underselling this
systems.
patch? I feel like this patch is bigger than like patches we've had. Some of the patches we've had recently.
I think they've just started
maybe
the
since-
hype for it.
Yeah.
Do you reckon? Okay. Well, I
Yeah.
suppose it's fairly early. Like, we're probably going to see this patch late March, maybe, I guess.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, they'll
But
be
it's
hyping this one
also-
for a couple months.
Yeah.
It's also, and I don't want to shortchange the progress here when it comes out, right? I don't want to shortchange it, but it's also like a bulk transfer. Like we said earlier in the show, it's a bulk transfer of what is currently in existence for Squadron 42. So maybe it's easier to bring all of this new content over because it exists in one way or fashion. So it's easy to translate into a workable Star Citizen, as opposed to a new salvaging loop or a new gameplay loop entirely. I think this is easier to do in bulk.
I'm sure it is. However, that's not all that's coming in 323.
Oh yeah, there's more.
But wait, there's more.
There's a bunch of stuff that isn't in Squadron that they also talked about that's coming into
so
323.
Let's talk about UGFs become distribution centers.
Yep.
How you feeling about that?
I'll
It's
wait.
new locations. That's awesome.
But
How
it's
can you not
like
love
it's
new locations?
different from a new these are, look at the UGFs we have now, right? And look what's about to replace them. It's not even just a UGF anymore. Do you think that they're going to start to reorient the way that these ground and mercenary missions are working? Are they going to get rid of these older ones? Like, how do you think this new location is going to fit into the game?
No, so the way I see it, like right now, you've got different tiers of all the game loops, right? So like cargo, you have 1 box missions, 6 box missions. Mercenary, you've got like a smaller location or a larger location. I think it'll still exist in its current. Like I can't see them getting rid of it. UGF seems like the next evolution. It seems like okay, so now maybe you're on the third or fourth, whatever they're calling it, reputation grinds. So here's now you're introduced to UGFs and these massive, almost like dungeon or trial experiences. I just think it's an evolution. It's going to be on top of what already exists.
All right. Anybody else got feels on that?
It's just so much. It could be on its own. Could be its own patch, but it's not just bundled in with everything else. Like what? Crazy.
I'm thinking I'm really interested in seeing what kind of missions they can do here that aren't combat related. Because they talk about how they're going to have their unique layouts and different factions. They've mentioned Grey Cat and Shubin. And along with like the cargo stuff they've been talking about, I'm wondering what kind of interesting things they could do with cargo missions that we couldn't do with the outposts we had before. There's a lot more sort of capacity coming out of these places.
Yeah, I imagine if they the distribution centers that we're going to be seeing in 323, at least from everything they've shown us so far, are very different to the full concept of the new UGFs that they talked about like a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if they ever get it to that level, yeah, we're probably going to see a ton of different mission types. The ability for, well, we might even see it with 323, the ability for freight elevators to come into actual like mission specific elements, right? Like you actually have to go to a freight elevator, maybe to pull out a 32 SCU crate, that sort of thing, and that's what you've got to deliver. All of those sort of things theoretically should be possible here, but at the very least, it's a significantly better layout location for missions we currently have. So they like eliminate 10 at one of these UGFs, you're approaching them significantly differently than go down elevator, shoot everything in sight.
Yeah.
So at the very least, it just adds a lot more substance to what we can use right now.
Yeah. It's also, they also, I don't know if they mentioned this in SCL for 323, but these locations are supposed to introduce Star Citizen's quote unquote raids, right?
Yes. So raids were not mentioned in SCL. That was not something. They said they'd make iterations on Blockade Runner, a change to Xeno Threat, but specifically about like raids in general. No. But you're absolutely right. Like the way I look at like UGFs are these DCs. I see them like hubs, like mission hubs. I hate to reference like World of Warcraft, but you would go and you have these hubs that have all the different types of dailies and side missions that you would do. I kind of see UGFs serving that purpose for Star Citizen. Like rather than having to jump from an orbital station to a planet marker and switching between a salvaging mission and a mining mission, it's kind of all capable at that one location. And that's what excites me. It's like, let's not waste, some people might see it, old people with kids, myself, might see it as like a waste of time to like log in 30 minutes later, you're finally starting your mission. Well, UGF is like, as long as I'm close to a UGF, I can play to my heart's content and touch every game loop I wanted to touch.
You know, I'm hoping that's how things are for the towns and the cities as well. Like one of the things they focused on with the Pyro update to the towns that they're doing is like localized gameplay. You get missions at this town, you go out couple hundred meters, run a mission, you return to that town. I'm really hoping all these locations act as sort of hubs like that, and you can just choose what your archetype is, whether it's a space station, a town, a distribution center, a city.
Yeah,
I love that idea.
We started to see that a little bit with the retrieval op missions, right? Of like, if like on Microtech, for example, there was one like, you know, only a few kilometers away from Microtech, you could just pick up that box and then land on a building. I think that was like the first kind of like small, you know, obviously you're in a universe in Stanton, but this is actually quite, you know, you don't need to even use quantum in that mission, which is quite cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So the distribution centers will be bringing in new missions and activities. The features and development will continue for that. And then you had mentioned the dynamic events. So they mentioned 2 new missions, Xenothreat Update and Blockade Runner. Were there any other missions, or was it just a dynamic events update kind of?
That's all I recall them talking about was the introduction of the brand new Blockade Runner and changes to Xenothreat.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I feel like we might have seen possibly a snippet of what's going to be happening with Xenothreat in the playtest that happened last weekend for server meshing, but not
the replication layer.
Replication layer, yeah. There was a mission that was specifically stop the Xenothreat raid, where there were missions essentially just all over the place where you had to go fight 4 hammerheads that were together. I would imagine that is part of a greater thing that's going on with Xenothreat, but they're keeping it very close to their chest, it seems.
I'm wondering how Xenothreat's going to progress, how all these events are going to progress if when the game is finally running and they're like, yeah, so the UEE has this full military presence here, but Xenothreat still attacks every couple of weeks. And like, Orison is constantly getting bombarded by these pirates, and we just keep having to bring in civilians. I'm wondering how they're going to fit these events into the lore and narrative, because they're so jarring.
It's definitely an astropod question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of hope the like base building and like territorial part of Star Citizen, when that comes into the game, will kind of facilitate that gameplay naturally. So these events can be a little bit more, less frequent, and these things come up naturally. Like, rather than Xenothreat, maybe it's Croncy's, or they're just being a pain and keep attacking my base or whatever.
Imagine CIG makes an official
fight back,
mission.
That would be really cool. So I kind of feel like I don't mind if these events don't happen often. They're a nice, unique thing, but I think if they do them too much, I think people probably do them less.
So here's my take on that. Make it organic. Make it organic. Don't make it like, every 2 weeks, or make it like a seasonal thing. Like just make it happen on the servers. Just start it and see it organically happen.
So they've started to change the name of these events to global events instead of dynamic events, because I think that they realized they need to do something different for like you're saying. It would be weird to just randomly trigger Xenothreat, because it would take so long for people to get out there. But
but Xenothreat's more of like a story-driven event, right? Like the Siege of Orison and Xenothreat are special in terms of dynamic events, where there is a particular reason this is happening, and theoretically in lore, it's not happening over and over and over again. Whereas Blockade Runner, which will be coming out soon, and Jumptown could happen all the time. It could happen at random times over and over again in different locations. So yeah, you do have to sort of treat them differently, but to sort of also go against what Ollie said about them not being, make sure they're not too frequent. I think they have enough of a variety of them now that you can make them more frequent, but we keep getting into the situation where we'll see Jumptown 12 times over the course of 3 months. And just Jumptown. Of course I'm going to get bored of it after that, right? Like I really want Xenothreat right now, even though I played it a ton a year and a half ago. If we had Xenothreat for like a couple of weeks right now, I'd love it.
And throw a different faction, throw it in a different system, and it's something else to do. There's also Korea, I feel, kind of represents what dynamic events feel like. Like somebody did something and it spawned an event that called out to other people. That's I think that's kind of the direction they're moving in for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Love it.
All right. Let's talk about persistence. Hangars and freight elevators. Oh my gosh, they've been on the roadmap for like...
okay, this is the hype train I want to get on.
Yeah.
This is what I... If this works how I've dreamed it working, like, I'm all in. I want this. Just being able to have my little layout, my little home, put stuff over there, put stuff over there. When I come back, it's still there. Please.
It's like the first time we've been able to have a home in the verse that wasn't just a different hab every time you respawn.
I want to put my fish tank out. I've had a fish tank for like 10 years.
I mean, you can put your banners in your hab, and that's about it.
Oh yeah, that's a thing, huh? I remember they showed that on ISC.
Yeah, you can hang them up if you've got them in your thing. But like, how often are you in your hab?
Yeah. So now
I'm
we've
definitely
got
in the hospital more often.
we've got persistent hangers and freight elevators. Who wants to take the torch and explain kind of for our viewers or our listeners what this is and why it's a big deal? Come on.
Yeah,
Somebody's
I'll try freight elevators. We'll start with that.
Okay.
So this is one of my most like looking forward to items. Is freight elevators. So one of the consistent, and I'll start with an example to use to explain. So the Fury MX, or the Fury, amazing ship, doesn't have a quantum drive. So to me, it's pointless. To go from one bounty hunting mission to another bounty hunting mission, that is a nightmare because you don't have the ability to quantum drive. So how awesome would it be to be able to load that into a ship that can carry it? I don't know, C2, right? M2. But to do that is a 30-minute loop, or 15-minute to 30-minute loop, because you can't nest spawning of ships. Well, the first iteration, or the first solution to this, is this idea of freight elevators. So if you have the items in your inventory, you can call up an elevator that has, your STV, your Gray Cats, right? It has smaller vehicles. It has cargo boxes for these org night missions, but it's all consolidated in one. I'm going to call it a game loop. But in one instance, it's all consolidated where you spend that time in a couple of seconds in your hangar loading up your big ship with whatever comes up in the elevator. It's a consolidation. It's a funnel point of all the different inventories into one experience.
It's so good.
But all the inventory is
like,
in that place, right?
Yeah.
Yes, it has to be in that location.
Right.
Is my understanding. Yeah.
Like being out, like cutting out that game loop, like you say, of like, okay, I want to go rock mining tonight. Okay, well, that's going to take you 30 minutes, 45 minutes if there's just Star Citizen jank, and then by the time you get there and you load it in and whatever, and that's eats into your game time. And I do like, going on a transit and being immersed, and everything takes a little bit of time, and it's like procedure. But the procedure of like deciding I want to go rock mining, hitting a button, it comes up in an elevator, and loading it in is just so much better from like a time value for me personally, because it means I'm spending more time doing what I actually got on the game for and less time kind of preparing it. It's like turning up to like a D&D event and like having all the pieces like next to you rather than having to like decide and go and find stuff. It takes way longer. Like, wouldn't it be better if we could just turn up and quickly decide what we're doing and just go?
Look, Ollie, I'm never prepared for D&D, okay? I'm going to end up doing that anyway.
Yeah, and I can probably say I'll never be prepared for a Star Citizen mission either, so. But I think there's also something to be said about the complexity of preparing for a mission. Like, definitely some balance of, yeah, we're going to make this so that you can do this all in one place, but there's still... And I think you've already alluded to this. There's still that sense of the physicality of like moving the stuff you need from one place to another, making sure you have the tools you need. And they also showed off like these new motorized sort of like hover trolleys for boxes and stuff. A lot of people are really worried about the fact that they'll need to load this stuff in. Do you, from that kind of trolley and the things they've said, do you get the sense that they're making it easier for the people who maybe just are carrying like 10 SCU, that they can do it really, really fast? Or are they still going to have to suffer through physically loading their ships?
I think so. It was always going to be a problem for some people, and it was something that I was a little bit concerned about. Of like, all right, well, how much interaction do I have to do for like large jobs? Like, obviously, some things get a lot smaller, like you guys were mentioning, with like putting vehicles or gear into the ship. That's a lot better. But in terms of like moving cargo and stuff like that, becoming a lot more tedious. And then I started playing Eve again in November and did significantly more tedious things and enjoyed it a lot. So I am less concerned, and I've been hearing a lot less concerns from other players about that aspect. I don't think the trolley is necessarily made to solve that. I think it's just a thing that was going to happen anyway, especially when we do start this sort of the freight elevators allow us to, get towards rearming our missiles a lot easier as well. That sort of stuff. It was always just going to be a quality of life thing more than anything.
Yeah. And I do think it's a good balance. Like the realism, like the physicality you mentioned, it's a good balance because I mean the realism is where is your I was gonna curse. Where are your items like physically in the orbital station? They gotta be somewhere. So you have to imagine that there's a cargo team in the back that's consolidating it onto your elevator and sends it up to you. So like the role playing aspect or the reality there, like I can see that happening. So it just streamlines it, right? I don't think the trolley is a big deal. Again, it's a balance between the physical end state or the vision that CIG has at the same time. Players that are demanding like, okay, this is ridiculous. I don't need to have 30 minutes of a game loop before I can play my game loop. So I love it. I think everything about it is headed the right direction.
Cool. So we're getting, I'm reading it here, freight elevators, instance hangars, and an overall improved cargo hauling experience. Instance hangars, is that, are they, did they imply during the show that these are hangars we could return to, we can store stuff in and come back to it? Or are they saying that this is literally going to be one-time use and then you can't come back to that hangar?
So what you're describing right now is persistent hangars.
Right. So they're not going to let us come back to it.
Well, so instance hangars are essentially a requirement for freight elevators, just so you don't end up getting bogged up with so many people in the exact same physical spaces of like, you know, the 12 or 20 hangars that are at Hurston.
Right.
So presumably there'll be some aspect of when you are ready to leave, you will maybe call ATC and then it's going to put you in one of those locations for you to actually leave. You will not have a home hangar yet.
Not yet.
Essentially.
That's the dream.
That is the dream. Yeah.
Almost there, guys.
So that means that you can't just like have a bunch of org stuff on the hangar that you loaded from your ship, leave that hangar, and then bring the people back to it.
They haven't explicitly said you won't be able to do that, but I imagine you won't. I imagine once you leave the hangar, everything that's not in the freight elevator will probably just get deleted.
Yeah. And I agree with Croncy. I think the incident hangars, it's only for whenever like the doors close, it pulls you out of that, like virtually it pulls you out. So that way you're not loading up your cargo. Let's say you're loading up a Carrack, you know, full of items. It's going to take you probably 5 minutes to do that. Well, they're not going to bog down the orbital station with a bunch of 5-minute hangars. So that instance hangar takes you offline, right? Whenever the doors close, and it allows other people to fly into that. That's literally the only thing that they're accomplishing is that instead of you getting, what's the phrase? Instead of you getting like off booked or put away, forgot the phrase, but instead of being like forced to leave, you can stay there as long as you want to.
Cool.
Theoretically, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you reckon there'll be, I don't know if there already is or not, but do you reckon there'll be a limit on, say you call ATC, you get put into a like hangar 12, the doors open. Do you have a time limit before, like, hey, you need to leave, otherwise we're going to boot you? Because
it'll depend on when they instance it, which we're probably not going to know until we get our hands on it. Because, like, yeah, it might instance the second the doors close, and then you're fine, and you might be infinite time that you can chill in here and do your freight elevator, which is ideal, especially because you know we're going to be interacting with that stuff a lot more than we currently do in hangars, so we need that extra time. But I don't believe they mentioned anything, and so we probably won't see for a little bit.
Okay. Well, I mean, at least their instance, like this is a big improvement over what we had for sure. I am excited to see freight elevators. They didn't mention anything about any of the other stuff that they talked about during those ISCs last week, but just being able to load like our vehicles at a space station is really nice. Do you think that this would lower the use or even remove people's interest in going to outposts?
No, because you still have missions to those outposts. You still have trading available at those outposts. They have also mentioned in a monthly report, I don't remember if it was the most recent one, but it was semi-recent, that freight elevators are being considered for economy changes at all locations, including outposts. So things will change there anyway. The only people, I guess, that won't go to outposts as much are people that like are only getting an ROC out, right? Like they still very much have their uses.
Okay.
I mean, if you're on Daymar and you suddenly decide you want to go rock mining, you're not going to go back to a hangar on like Orison.
Yeah.
So you just the quicker thing is to go to the outpost in that specific situation.
Right.
Yeah, they might just be more convenient. Yeah.
Okay, I'm seeing that we're getting the new looting UI, right?
Oh, that's coming?
Yeah, it says new looting.
That's in notes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I
New loot
thought
system
it
and new
was
UI.
we were going to get the interaction, but we weren't going to get the new. Yeah.
So the only thing I remember them saying was like if you go to a dead body, you could map out the action to quickly equip ammunition, but I don't remember them saying like an entirely new looting system. Do you, Croncy?
So I didn't watch SEL because I was asleep. But
okay.
In the notes that Nikau has sent to a couple of Discords, it does say new loot system and UI and a new app for in-game purchases. So
yeah, that shopping app.
Yeah, I would imagine that it is the loot UI that we saw at CitizenCon. Yeah. Whether it makes it into 323 is a different thing, which is a big asterisk on all of these. They're just targeted for 323.
Yeah.
The only things that are probably likely are what we saw at ISC today or yesterday.
That was that's like full screen inventory, right? That's what you're talking about.
Sort of, yeah.
Like a red and blue and orange or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Basically, a quick way to see what's in your inventory, what's in theirs, and change things in and out rather than. I guess we get that now, but it's like you have to click into the text field and
it's so bad.
Awful.
I will say on like a partial bit of that is like, when they did show on the ISC with the interaction mode that you can just go up to a body, look at a bit of ammo, and just press F. Oh my God, I was so excited. I was so happy. What a change.
Man.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Like actually in combat as well. That makes a huge difference.
It's again one of those things that you tell somebody who's coming into this game and they're like, okay.
Do you mean it works the way that it should? All right, mate.
You don't know. You weren't there.
But yeah, that's a great one. I really like the ability to change what the key does too. So if you have somebody who's just obsessed with just looting stuff into the backpack, they don't have to actually pick it up. That's a really nice touch.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you think that this MobiGlass app, the shopping app, is going to be a new style, or are they just going to throw it on the old MobiGlass and then update everything together?
How do you mean?
Well, we've got the new MobiGlass, right? The one that they're bringing over from Squadron, and it's got all these different designs and main screen. But here, I'm not seeing any mention of the MobiGlass rework in these in these notes, but I am seeing mention of a new app for in-game purchases.
Well, as far as I'm aware, all of the apps that they've made in like the last, I want to say 3 years, are all essentially coming over when we get the new main UI for the MobiGlass. So I don't know when they're going to be changing the main part of the MobiGlass. I think this will probably be implemented just like Delphi was, Ammo Trader was. Here's an app. It's obviously its own complete different UI. We'll see what the rest of the MobiGlass looks later.
I guess that's possible. I'm sitting here thinking that every single one of the apps needs to get a fresh coat of paint to match the new MobiGlass, but maybe they'll just move them all over and
I would say not the new ones. All of the new ones, I think since the Mo Trader, so Knickknacks, Mo Trader, Delphi, that might be it. That might be it. Are all already on building blocks. The rest of them weren't. So the contract manager, the vehicle manager,
I think it's all on building blocks.
The comms. I don't think any of those were on building blocks. That's still using old stuff, and that will likely be the stuff that gets implemented with the new MobiGlass. And I would imagine the other apps, maybe they get like a new texture or like new coloring or whatever it might be. But I imagine functionally they'll just be chucked in.
So what will be on this shopping app? I mean, obviously, I don't know if you guys know, but like, what do you think will be on the shopping app? Because like
a buy button.
Part of the Star Citizen experience is like landing at. Like it opens up a window for the pledge store.
Yeah.
Like, if they're gonna just give you an app on the MobiGlass, like, why am I going down to Microtech to buy, a specific weapon?
Well, I think it's
in the store.
I think it's almost like an external monitor. So like sometimes when you're buying stuff in a store, it'll pop up your MobiGlass app to buy it. I think it'll be sort of like that. So you still have to be in the physical location. It just corresponds with your MobiGlass instead of a kiosk.
So we won't have the panel screens anymore.
No, so
Like, when you go
Those will be
still
around,
there.
it seems. Yeah. I think
Yeah, so if
there's
you-
going to be unique situations for either of these things.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I'm not sure what they'll do, but I don't like the current shops. They are terrible.
Yeah.
So
I just-
I'd like
'cause-
to change.
So is knickknacks.
I'm just thinking because they added those screens to the Pyro store. We saw them in the Pyro
Mhm.
playtest, so they're obviously not going away because they're in a new location.
Yeah,
Like if those things were going away, so interesting what they'll.
It could be.
I imagine the screens will still be there. It's just other stuff is gonna work around it.
The shopping
Interesting.
app could also be maybe something you use to track prices, but you can't purchase. Maybe it could be used for like commodity shopping for haulers.
Where
I
to
don't
buy
know.
stuff would be
Yeah.
massive.
Yeah, it's could be a lot of stuff, but a shopping app is an interesting choice.
Open up your
Okay.
Mobiglass, browse through a brochure of everything that you can get in Co-op, get some,
Yeah, you
get some
can-
in-game ads.
Yeah, if it tells you like where to find stuff, that's really useful. Like a shopping app would just say, oh, if you want the Panthers, they're at Crew L1, for example.
Yeah.
All
Cool.
right.
I'm up for that.
Now, sounds like in 323 they're planning on allowing us to make ourselves pretty. Finally getting that new character customizer with I think with the hair stuff that
Hair dyeing.
does it say that here? Customize your
Two ways to customize
character.
character. The standard
DNA
DNA blender
blender.
we have now, and a finer editor that will allow you to customize them more manually.
Okay. It says makeup, multi-level hair dye, and other customizations to come soon. So we're still waiting for the whole character customizer, but this is the new customizer, right? It looks much more intuitive, more functional, and just a pleasure to use compared to what we had before.
Yeah. Beyond the aesthetics, I think they were talking about anchor points. It's like how you click and drag, you can move facial features. I think that was the big takeaway for me is your nose, your eyebrows. You can start getting into really making it unique using those anchor points. But you're right. Yeah. The rest of it, like the makeup, tattoos, the hair dye, that wasn't promised for 323, is just coming soon.
Yeah, it sounds like, once again, in sort of a theme with a lot of the things that they were talking about, and in both ISE and SCL, this is the UI implementation mostly, and then a lot of the extra stuff to come later.
Yeah. So 323 is shaping up to be absolutely a significant patch with a lot of big additions, but they're not all getting delivered in their final forms. It's still Star Citizen, it's still iterative, and we're still going to see more of this coming later in the year.
Yeah, but some of them are such core things. I mean, you said it so much earlier. It feels like a lot of the things that are coming in is for a video game. And that's the big thing. This patch feels like it's going to be huge. It's really going to change everything about how the game feels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Assuming any of these make it in, you never know.
There it is.
The last thing that I wanted to touch on that we see here on this list are the FPS updates, reloading, ammo management, dynamic crosshair, and stuff like that. Also, they're talking about quality of life improvements, so that might be the sounds and the recoil and stuff. You guys do a lot of FPS? Does that hit you where it counts?
Yeah.
I think the
100%.
only thing that really like grabbed my attention was the ammunition. Like, it's really annoying to remember how many rounds are in which magazine. So sometimes you'll reload and only have 2 rounds in that magazine. Shoot them off and then get the next one that has 30.
Right.
So the round consolidation was attractive to me, but the rest I'm like, it's sexy. Like it'll be nice to see. But it wasn't like groundbreaking for me.
The dynamic crosshair is very different to how we've played Star Citizen before. So it's going to be interesting to see how much that impacts the game. I can't at the moment think of a game that has had, I know they exist, but I can't right now think of a game that has had, the crosshair move independently sometimes of your view, of your head. But none of the FPS games I've played recently have done it. So it's going to be a little bit jarring.
I'm not sure I'm gonna like it because
it'll be a weird one.
Because if you're like walking or running, you're just gonna have a white crosshair like bouncing around all the time, right? So like I think it needs to fade, like when you slow down. Maybe like if it's on the screen all the time, maybe I just need to use it, and like after I use it for like half an hour, I just won't want to go back. But without using it, I'm a little bit skeptical on how that's going to feel because I'm so used to it's stationary the whole time.
That
It
might be
makes
why.
sense, but
They're not making every helmet have it. Be
Possibly,
easier to pick and choose. It is interesting though to see where the bullet's going to land rather than what you're looking at. I'm wondering how that if that's something that they include because it might work better with like eye tracking or VR stuff in the future. Does it make a difference for that kind of stuff?
It definitely does, for sure, because you can sort of already do that with eye and head tracking now. Like this firing style exists already within the game, just with like external
Hardware.
help. I will say though, no, it's lost. Continue.
Love it.
I know how it feels. We'll come back to that one.
One thing I will say is like I think a lot of these changes for 23, assuming they all come in as planned, I think if you put it down in a list, like how much time per game session do you spend in the style map? How much time do you spend looking at your inventory? How much time do you spend looking at interaction menus? I think it's gonna really change a big portion of like stuff you actually spend time doing in Star Citizen.
Yeah.
Like we touched on like the hangars, like going collecting vehicles or loot and stuff. Like I feel like there's small changes, like kind of, but I think in terms of how much it changes of the actual Star Citizen experience is quite a big proportion of what Star Citizen is, which is like looking at the star map, choosing your loadout, you know, those sort of things. So I'm really excited about this patch if it carries on how they're planning, obviously.
Yeah. You make a good point too. It's we were very excited about salvage coming into the game. We were pumped for other things. Like there are big features that come in certain parts of the game that get people excited, but it's not often that we get a feature that makes a big difference to every single player, let alone like 6 to 10 different features that make a difference. And like you said, we spend a lot of our time, like 50% of our time in a certain menu that's getting affected by these updates. And that makes it so much more a significant update than even something like the cargo refactor or persistent entity streaming, because those things are important in the long run, but these things everyone's going to notice immediately as soon as they log in.
I think it's also it's important to mention everything that they talked about during ISC and SCL essentially were gameplay features or locations, right? Everything there. There are still the questions of, well, you know, we just had the replication layer test. Are we going to see that in 323? They've been talking about even more improvements to VFX and improvements to like FPS quality and stuff like that. Are we going to see that in 323 as well? Like just how thick is this patch becoming, essentially?
Yeah, there are other things that they usually don't mention that they just kind of throw in there as well.
Yep.
And then beyond this, I mean, we haven't even talked about Vulkan API that we know is coming at some point this year. It's like engineering gameplays being worked on. There are a lot of things that we haven't talked about that are still coming. There's a whole other star system. It's good stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like a few months ago, pre-CitizenCon, I think everyone was thinking 2024, is that year in? Yeah. It's going to be like Pyro year. Everyone's going to be focusing on Pyro. It's going to be, that's the big thing. There's going to be the big draw, getting players playing Star Citizen. Maybe you've played it and stopped playing it for a while. You're going to come back for Pyro. I think people are going to come back for like, oh, the start map's working now. And like the interaction is much better. Pyro obviously is massive, but like for me personally, as someone who's recently got back into Star Citizen, I feel like this is kind of a really cool surprise that we're getting these drastic changes to make it more like more of an everyday sort of game that doesn't, you know, like make it difficult. Like you're trying to do things sometimes and the game makes it difficult for you to appreciate playing it, but you play it anyway because it's great.
There was
go
ahead.
I was gonna make a macro statement, but one of like the most common themes I hear from friends that have given up on Star Citizen, it's not that there's not a lot to do or there's not a lot of features. The reason why they give up is because it's buggy and they can't do XYZ. They had a bad experience because of a buggy experience. Quality of life could be exactly what you were talking about, Ollie. It might be what brings people back. Hey, the elevators don't kill people anymore. Sweet. That's why I left. It was stupid. I couldn't get anywhere. This, we say it's a low bar. Hey, we finally get a map. I agree with that sentiment, Tomato, but at the same time, it's like, hey, there's a whole new map. You can search functionality. That might be the reason why somebody comes back. So I don't know. It might be just as good as launching a new system.
Yeah.
Not to mention, as an extra quick thing, so the two major new player drives are Invictus and IAE, right? Invictus last year was an absolute S show, and it showed new players did not want to play during 3.18, right? And the account number did not go up as much as it, at least percentage wise, as much as would have in previous years. These changes for a new player coming in, insane. I fully imagine a lot of these would just make your first experience in this game so much easier and so much prettier in a lot of instances, right? Like, once again, I really like the look of the UI. I think I've mentioned it like 4 times now. It's just so much nicer on the eyes. And so if they can get this out before Invictus, which is probably likely, Invictus isn't until late April, I want to say. Normally.
May, I'm pretty sure.
May. I feel like it's likely that they would get this out before then. Maybe not, but you never know.
Maybe that's the target.
Possibly. There was a mention in the ISC about how they're going to be talking about this stuff for like 4 months, I think. So
that's the target then, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, regardless, should be an absolutely fantastic new player driver.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is that it's hard to suggest this game to people, partially because, it's a crazy cool game, but first impressions aren't great. We can all agree.
Well, they are
How
great.
do I get out of bed?
And the screenshots and gameplay. But then, like, I make videos on this game for a living, but I've got personal friends that I have said, like they ask, hey, should we play? I'm like, no, just wait. Because I know there's some players who will play this game once, and if it doesn't deliver, they're never going to re-download it.
Yeah.
And I think this stuff needs to like come in before I start saying to like my friends who I know don't have the patience to keep testing it and keep trying it, for me to invite those people in. Because like, people have loads of options, loads of games, and if they've got one experience with Star Citizen where the star map wouldn't select the place they wanted to go to, and it was frustrating, and then a 30k happened, it's like they're not gonna like come back again and waste an evening. Like, they're gonna find there's plenty of options, right? So this stuff that makes the game easier, you get to do what you want quicker, I think it's gonna make it a lot easier to recommend to people.
Yeah, you guys,
patience.
Would you say that if these features came in 3.23, everything we talked about today came in and worked relatively well, Star Citizen good, would you say the game's ready for those players who were kind of sitting on the sidelines and waiting to jump in, or does the game still need more content?
If the replication layer stuff comes in,
replication is massive.
Stability,
but I have a 30k
stability
recovery,
is still
and
very important. Yeah.
And it was good.
I'm waiting for my friends until after Pyro. Like, I think the launch of a whole new system is going to bring in a lot of dynamics and a lot of different, things to consider beyond like the tech and everything else. So I'm holding off until we have Pyro and say, hey, there's 2 systems you can fly between. But until
That's
then,
fair.
I feel like it's gonna be a pretty rough transition.
Yeah, it'd be nice to also have multi-crew gameplay in a good place.
Yes.
When you bring some people in.
Or like engineering.
Yeah.
Yep.
The last thing I want to ask you guys is, did I say ask you guys or ask? Ask you guys, okay?
Either way.
For a long time, people have been saying, hey, server meshing is going to come around. Hey, we're going to get this good stuff. The networks, the FPS, all that stuff. The dams are going to break. Here it comes. And we're now suddenly seeing a bunch of features showing up that people have been waiting for. But it seems more like it's because of Squadron 42. Does it feel like that dam breaking moment? And does it feel like it's actually Squadron that caused it? Or how do you guys feel about should people feel like we're finally at that stage where Star Citizen is just going, or is this feel like a standout patch for you?
I feel like we've been handed a report that says the dam may break in a couple of months' time, and here's all the damage it would do. Until we get into a PTU, I will still not be 100% confident about
I don't like that
most
government.
of these features.
That's not a good way to run things, man. Y'all might flood.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'm not. It's the classic Star Citizen. We'll wait and see. However, I will at least note something in its favor of anytime CRG have told us a ton of information about upcoming features, it has been very shoddy, but also like this is 6 to 12 months away. This is a ton of information about stuff that presumably they've got internal QA testing right now. Right? So it's a lot, hopefully it's a lot more consistent.
I think for me, it will be the persistent hangers will be the moment. And I'd like, because I think, and I think base building as well would be another one, which is obviously not anytime soon. But I think these things are all good. And I think this patch will be a great veteran retrieval device. It will bring back players that have played Star Citizen, had a good experience, but maybe they couldn't have the patience to keep playing all the time. I think this patch will be really good at bringing those people back. I think the player, I wouldn't be surprised if the day-to-day player concurrence of Star Citizen goes up with this patch for longer, because you probably get a spike every patch, and then it probably, I don't know, but probably goes down a bit as the patch goes on, and then something else comes out. But I feel like this patch will come out, and providing the features work as expected, it will probably be more consistent until the next patch, because the game's a lot more approachable, and like you can stay in it more without getting frustrated, honestly.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents.
I'm like scared to answer the question. So
don't worry, I'll record it and post it everywhere.
You're legally bound to this question.
What's funny. So I had Space Tomato on my show a couple weeks ago, and I total copium, whatever you want to call it. Like, I don't know. In my gaming industry experience, when you say that a game is feature complete and entering polishing phase, it's different regardless of the studio, right? Or it's different per studio. So the fact that Squadron 42 has entered polishing phase or has been in polishing phase, we're seeing a lot of the tools being migrated over to Star Citizen, and we're going to iterate on it, make it better. I will stand by that this year, to answer your question, it's the year that the dam breaks. I think this is the year Squadron 42 is pretty damn near ready to release and be made a thing. And if that's the case, I mean, 4.0 with Pyro and server meshing and replication layer, this could be the year that we're all transitioning into a live environment. So there's your hopium comment for everybody in chat.
Yeah, man.
Solus beyond the verse. But I truly think there's a lot of data points that supports that. Now, regardless of 11 years of letdown, of timeline letdown, I do think there's a lot of data points that supports major progress this year.
Solus got the Star Citizen pinata full of goodies. Imagine we got server meshing, Pyro, Squadron 42 all in the same year after all this. I'd quit. How would you even cover that in content, dude?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, there's nothing else to talk about. We're gonna have to play the game instead of talking about the game.
Challenge accepted.
I'll make it work. It's fine.
My computer always yells at me when that happens. No, just talk about it, please. Podcasts are fine.
Yeah.
All right. So guys, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a nice little drawn out talk, I will say. I really wanted to get the detail on these features because it's pretty unprecedented seeing this amount of stuff coming into into Star Citizen specifically in 1 year, let alone one patch. And I think the ramifications of this kind of stuff, from us playing the game to some random person watching like a random Jack Frags video who's never heard of Star Citizen, seeing a game that has an actually decent looking HUD and good FPS, in addition to being a cool space game, I think it's going to make the biggest difference for Aldi, like you said, like the way people are starting to get into this. So glad you were all able to join me for this. Thank you so much. I want to open it up to like last thoughts on everything that we've just learned, or even further on in the future, like what you're really feeling, or maybe want to make a prediction on before we head out. Solus, I'll let you go first because you usually have the hot takes.
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess beyond. So I'm super excited about this patch. It's a lot coming whenever it's going to come. Super excited. Thanks for having me on the show. I think, yes, I know that is a far off target. Very hopium copium. But I don't know. Like, I'll say one last thing. I do think a capital ship is being released this year. No, I don't think which one. I don't have a lot of data. But they gave us a desired calendar of when they were going to be releasing these larger ships, and I just think we're due. I think we're due for one. Whether I know Polaris is not necessarily capital, but if you go and look at the Idris, I think there's enough data points and enough progress that we could also see a major ship in the future. So I'll leave it there. Maybe not the Bounty Merchantman, not to make anybody excited. But.
Yeah, don't even bring that up, man. Don't worry, CIG will. We all know.
Yeah.
All right, Croncy, give me your hot take, man. Last thoughts.
323 is going to be trash because they didn't mention anything about the creatures.
You're right. That's a good one. They didn't.
So disappointed. I was really hoping, with everything that's been in the month reports and everything they did at CitizenCon, I was really hoping we would get non-human creatures in this patch,
yeah,
and we still might. Of course, that could still happen, but yeah, terrible.
There's the damn breaking point right there.
I feel you there, man.
Space cow.
Just gonna have space cows standing on chairs everywhere, T-posing space whales, like floating through Orison, intimidating you as you come for like
Tisa Spaceport. Yeah. But okay. No, I think this is a huge. If they can get half of these features into 323, it is the biggest patch of all time in terms of how much content in one single patch. So, I mean, I was really disenfranchised with Star Citizen until like last week, and this is once again getting my hype like way back up there.
I feel it. I'm right there with you. Sorry, I'm just gonna waffle on if you get me talking about it again. Ollie, what's your hot take? What are you thinking for this year?
I really like the dam breaking thing. I think this is probably the first bolt going this patch. I think if this delivers, I think this is the first crack showing in the dam breaking. If you want to look at it like that, I think this is a massive patch. It's like, for me personally, when I came back to the game, I think I played it in like 2015 and then came back to it in 2019. Like, I feel like this patch delivers that time gap almost. Like, the game is going to feel really different, which for me is really exciting. And yeah, I just really hopeful we get persistent hangers soon. Like, for me personally, that's a massive thing. And the bigger ships, I think it's going to be an interesting dynamic for the game. How that works with engineering, and there's just so much. Like, this patch is just ridiculous. I don't even know where to start. I don't understand how we covered it because there's just so much there, but we managed it, guys. Well done.
Yeah, I'm glad we were able to get it through all this stuff.
Not only that, but like all of that information coming out like an hour and a half before the podcast.
Solid job, guys. Yeah, we got to it.
Smashed it.
No, I really appreciate everybody who was able to sit down for this, and thank you all for joining us. If you didn't already find all these lovely folks, we're going to have their links down in the show notes for you. If you're here live with us, Mrs. T has been dropping their links in the chat, and we'll also have these posted in whatever place the podcast is posted. But thank you all for joining us today, whether you were listening and watching live at home right now, or you're going to watch this later. I appreciate you. Our supporters, as always, are supporting this, keeping it ad-free on audio platforms. So if you don't like YouTube's ads, check that out. And if you do like watching these podcasts live, every single week we are doing the launch sequence live with our supporters here on the Discord. So you have that option too. But one last time, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I would like to invite you preemptively to future shows because I enjoy all of you talking to you. It's good fun. I hope you've enjoyed your time today, though. And,
thanks for having us.
Always.
Yeah, very much so.
Thank you. I will see you all again next month. Thank you, everybody, for joining me for the Citizen Central podcast. Keep an eye out for our giveaways and our other videos coming out. And stay real. Bye, guys. Have a good one.